Aloha and welcome to the Path of Me podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I wanted to create a sacred space for soul to soul conversations with people sharing their light through their passion, power, and purpose. Thank you all so much for being here. Let me introduce my next amazing podcast guest. Hey everyone, welcome to the Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson. I have the lovely Kim Boudreau Smith with me today. She's an executive and leadership coach, facilitator, and speaker. And she also was the first person to create and launch an internet radio station, Bold Radio. She's a co-author of several Amazon best-selling books. And I'm sure I could go on, but welcome to the show, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy, for having me here. I've been so excited. I can't wait. Yeah, for spending time with you. I love.
I do too. I feel the same way. What really fascinated me about your story is I'm always so fascinated by the journey, right? What got you here and what kind of things you've overcome to become the person and the voice you are today and the leader you are today. So I'd really like you to share your story on how you went from, this person staying silent to avoid being labeled or judged to really embracing your power and shifting into changing your own life. There's always a rich story there in background. So maybe you could share a little bit of that.
Well, I was that young girl that now I'm going to really age myself, but I was that young girl that used to organize with all the neighborhood kids like Mother May I and hopscotches and races. I used to bet all my neighborhood, kids, all our friends, I'll bet you a nickel that I can beat you on a race. I was always organizing things like that, and they always fell for it too because I would beat them every time, and they'd have to pay me a nickel, but or I was organizing, I grew up dancing on a stage because I was labeled for my parents a very shy child. So I was enrolled in the local dance. And I remember one summer, I'm like, okay, well, how do I turn this into how to make money? So my father hung like a curtain in the garage, a sheet. And then I charged all the neighborhood kids and their mothers to come, and I did a show, I did a performance. So, I was
Oh,
always
I
that
love it.
child that people, my parents would tell me, I'm bossy, I have a big mouth, tone it down, all of that,
All the leaders do.
Yes, indeed. So, after hearing that as a young child and going into my teenage years and where I became very rebellious in my teenage years, and it became such a rebellious war between myself and my mom and trying to get my voice out. And every time I did, it seemed like I got myself in trouble, but just that journey of embracing that, I took that on like now how I wear my favorite pair of Athleta yoga pants, that soft, silky, smooth stuff.
Yeah.
But I took it on like a second skin. And
Mm.
so I had a very successful corporate career, but it was full of lies. It was imposter syndrome. I didn't even know what imposter syndrome was back then. I was the only woman at a table. I spent many a days in the bathroom crying. Women, if there were women around, they were stabbing me to get into my position, which come into my position because I'm going to the next level and then I'm going to help you get to the next level is my whole attitude. So there's been a lot of overcoming. I'm still overcoming. I'm just at another, decade in my life and still overcoming things because it's never perfect.
I think it's been a real difficult journey for women because of the programming, social programming and conditioning, right? And then if you have religion added in, layered in, um, it really, really forced women into these tight boxes,
Yeah. Yeah.
which were then perpetuated, right, when we were growing up.
Yeah.
You don't want to draw attention. You don't want to be too much. You're too much. you
Or
know,
you're not enough,
or you're
or
not, whatever it is, but there was always a
whatever.
story, and whatever you were, it wasn't it,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
I mean, those are societal messages that have kept our voices as women very marginalized and small. And there's different, I guess, levels is where my brain is going, and I don't necessarily mean levels, but there was a Caucasian, I as a Caucasian woman, there was a level of marginalization, and then we have women, black women, there was that level, and then we have brown women, and there's that level, and we as women have all been marginalized one way or another by societal issues, and it could not, and I'm not just saying, I don't want to say we have not just been marginalized from white men. We've been marginalized by our mothers, by our grandmothers, our neighbors, our teachers, our doctors. We
Our
have been
peers, even,
our
right? Who have,
peers.
like you said, have been, we're fighting to the top. I think there was just such a unconscious division created amongst all of us instead of coming together and building community and rising together, which I think are core values for you and I, right? I think there's plenty of room for all of us
There is more than enough room for all of
at the
us.
table, or in a
Yes.
leadership role, or because I feel like we all have our own individual thing that we bring to the table. Even if I realized this recently, well, not recently, but a few years ago, that even if someone is doing exactly what I'm doing, we hold a very unique energetic signature and a very unique style and a very unique way of doing things. So even if you're sitting next to someone who's doing something amazing, you can do the same, but bring your own flavor to it. So it's never going to be the same. So I
That's
think
yeah.
there's room for all of us in that because of that.
That's why I don't like the word. There's a place for this word, competition. Athletes, professional athletes, they compete. There's a an element of competition. But if I did the same thing that you did, Wendy, and you and I are in the same room and we're collaborating and partnering up together, I'm not Wendy. I don't bring it to the table or to the room or to the stage or anything like Wendy does. I bring it how I bring it.
Right. Right. And vice versa. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm glad we align with that. And I feel a resurgence of the divine feminine
Oh, yeah.
really rising. And not only divine feminine, but divine masculine too. I feel like there's been this kind of alchemy, and it's happening internally, and it's also reflected externally. And I know that so much is happening out in the world, but it's also bringing people together that maybe never would have come together.
Agreed. Agreed. And if you don't mind, if I could just stay here just for a second, I would love for everybody to hear, and I'm sure if they've been on your show or been through your environment and your energy of coaching or however, or just whatever, however that looks is, we all, men and women, have divine, masculine, and feminine energies in us.
Yes.
It's when we're up here in our heads, edgy, critical dialogue. I'm nervous. I can't. And that is more of that edgy, dragony masculine. Or if you're puffing up as a woman, puffing up because you're trying to vie to higher areas in an organization, which by the way, double thumbs up, please do it. But when we're trying to do it like how the men supposedly have taught us, we are not in our feminine energy. And quite frankly, men need to start shifting more into that feminine. That's the intuitive, that's a heart. That's
That's
heart.
the heart of everything,
Oh,
right? That's the heart of
yes.
creation and connection and authenticity, right?
Yes.
And I feel so strongly that people are really being guided back to the authentic self and their authentic power, but with no compass on how to get there. That's where people like you come in, where you can kind of guide them back to their inner truth
Yes.
and inner
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
without it, you don't have to be loud. There
No.
is such a power and presence in just knowing who you are and entering a room.
That is like a reputation. That is branding. That is when you energetically can enter a room and people can just feel it. They don't need to know what it is they're feeling because a lot of people don't know what it is they're feeling, that it's as long as they've got some vibrationalness going on, it's like Wendy, you're a beautiful example of the energies that you wear and embrace and have come in tuned in. Yes, I read your book and come
Thank
in tune. Yes, come in tuned with is you're confident in your skin, your body. And so when you enter a room, it gets down to the point, and I've had this happen to me is let's say I'm in the room with you and we're networking and some woman's oriented. It's like, you over there have got to go talk to Wendy. Not sure why, but you've got, that's how those beautiful energies work.
Right. It's a feeling. It's a
Yeah.
feeling. It's a
Yeah.
resonance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about the books that you were writing and putting out in the world. Tell me a little bit more about them and how people can find them. And
Well, first of all, those books they have been out and around and it's been years. So I'm not even quite sure they're still available on Amazon, but that was a step back in my business when I was entering an online space. So this was several years ago and felt that I participated in an anthology and I kept asking the woman who was leading the anthology, how have you become online? How do you get it? And she said, I'll tell you, one place to begin is lead an anthology, thought leadership, put your expertise in thought leadership out there. So I'm like, nah, nah, nah. And then she said it again, and I'm, and then she said it again. I'm like, okay.
sometimes
So
3 times you need to hear it before.
yeah, sometimes, yeah. Playing baseball, 3 strikes. I don't want to be out. So I brought together in the first book 27 women from around the world to claim their bold voice in the written form.
Wow, I love that.
So that book led me into the second book, which we decided the first book, women were telling about their stories, how they have arrived to where they are at. The second book was more strategic um, business tools and tricks and tips of the trades. And I was going to launch my internet radio station off of that second book. So again, visibility, thought leadership, and intentionality. So that's how those all came about. But gosh, it's been a while since
Tell
I
me
did.
about the radio show. What inspired you to do that? That was so bold.
Well, thank you. So that was back in the day where podcasting, which was not too long ago, podcasting was just taking a little bit of crumbs there of momentum. Well, so I thought, all right, I'm going to showcase my leadership, and I love talking more so than writing. I love talking. So I decided to have a podcast on this other platform. Well, let me tell you what was having this podcast on this other platform was like. I'm sitting here all by myself in my office. Technology's going on. I'm trying to manage my guest and everything. You're running a show. And I came off after doing a couple of those going, how many other women out there that are business owners that want to have a live radio show, but won't because of everything I just described? So, hence, Bold Radio Station was birthed. I had a team, and what we did was we handled everything for the female business owner to have her live radio station. We had producers, everything. All she had to do was go get her guest And then we went with it from there. And then, of course, she had to show up to her show.
Words, yeah.
And we recorded the show, so there was shelf life to it, aka podcast. But we did broadcasting live radio, and it was international.
Did you decide to shift and pivot from that? It sounds like what a beautiful offering.
It was a lot of fun. I still keep in touch to this day. My first producer that I brought on, in fact, was just talking with him today in the back end of Instagram. And I still see a few people out there, but it was beautiful. And it also behind the scenes was very intense because that was 24/7,
Oh,
365. We were
wow.
running,
Wow.
running. And you're living in a land of technology and hoping and praying there's no hiccups or burps for the day, So
Which are inevitable sometimes, but
yeah.
what did you learn about yourself from that experience?
Uh, I learned a lot. I probably should have done some more better preempt planning before launching that business. I'm very excitable and oh my God. And I'm a recovering title and bank account attachment. So the title of being able to birth and create and launch something like that was like, whoa, look at me, I'm a CEO. And it was very successful. So I learned that part. The other part was make sure you've got a really nice padded bank account when you're launching things like that. Because I had payroll from day one. Payroll from day one, I mean, I had teams because I couldn't do it by myself. So that's what I learned through all of that. There was, oh God, that's a great question, Wendy. I'm really reflecting back on that. I think there was a lot of scarcity mindset going on back then.
That's a huge reflection.
Yes. And taking on everyone and anyone. Well, not everyone and anyone belongs in a space. Every woman has a right to voice her voice, but sometimes we need some skill training, some massaging, some unraveling of societal pressures. So I took on everybody that came to me, and it probably was not a right thing to do.
I think there's something, I mean, for me, it's been energetic resonance, and I have done the same thing in a different way,
Yeah,
through my healing practice, where you just, in the beginning, it's an open door and you're an open book.
yeah,
And then you realize, there are different gradients of energy.
there is.
And it's really important that we interact and really work and stay in our lane with people in resonance with us.
Yeah.
But that's a lesson we learn, right, through experience.
Yeah, I agree with you, Wendy. It is a lesson that we learn through experience. And I also think a l- I'm thinking of like our phones or our computers, how we have defaults in them, that sometimes yesterday you're on your computer and then today it's like what has changed there that maybe a default clicked back on and not a whole major default, but
Right.
you know, even though with wisdom and resonance and energetics, there's always that little tiny slip of defaults that can come in
It's all
there.
like a program. We go right back to the program.
We
So
go
a lot of
back.
our growth is like releasing the programming, and it's
Yes.
comfortable there. You can slip right back and not even realize you slipped until you're like, oh, that's right. Oh, I remember this now.
Yes.
This is why I
Yes.
don't do this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right. Was there a pivotal moment, did something happen that caused you to come forward into your power and purpose, your voice? And was there an incident, or was it kind of a slow burn and eventually you shifted? Like, was there a pivot point?
There was a couple pivot points and there was some slow burns, even though I'll say to you, Wendy, they were slow burns. I don't think they were slow burns. I think there were red hot fires going on. I'm going to say they were slow burns, but There were a couple of pivotal points. I mean, I've had some beautiful pivotal points and walked away because I just was not ready at that time. But yet it cracked open my heart. For an example, locally here, it was about 20 years ago, I had anxiety like crazy and had my fitness business because that's my first business. I had my fitness business
Mhm.
going. I was an unhappy person, and I was having lunch with a friend, and she said, would you like me to introduce you to a therapist? And I'm like, well, I need details first. I want a female, and all that. So I said, sure, I'll take the name and number. But then when we left lunch, we still sat on the sidewalk, and she said, hey, how about this? I know about this woman's retreat. Would you be interested? I'm like, yep. I don't care how much. I don't care where I got to go. I got to do something because I'm an anxious mess. And we were in a middle of a major renovation of a home. So on top of everything else,
Oh
yep.
my gosh, that's a
So
lot.
yeah, so off I went to this retreat, and I can remember getting there, and there was pre-paperwork, but when you signed in, there was one of the things you had to sign in more paperwork. And one of the questions was, you are agreeing to complete this weekend. Okay, so I throw the pen down, and I'm looking around going,
Oh,
okay, who the F does
what does
anyone
that
think?
mean?
Who the F do you all think you are? I'm like, whoops, ooh, this is why you're here, Kim. Come on back. Well, that whole weekend, I was asking for peace within. I want peace within. Good Lord God, please. I don't care what you got to do. I need some peace within because I can't do this anymore. And there was one time we were out walking the land. There are 18 women, social silence, and it's starting to rain. The land was beautiful. You've got the herons in the water, and it's cloudy. And I stood there for a moment. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's starting to rain. I think I'll go inside by the fire and sit down and maybe do some reflection journaling, right? And Wendy, before I did that, I looked up to the sky and I said inside myself, dear God, all I want is peace within. Please, I just want peace within. And before I took the step to walk towards the accommodations where the fireplace was, I looked down on the ground. I'm like, what's that? That looks like a really cool rock. And I dug this thing out with my fingernail, and it was a peace sign charm.
Wow, that's not a sign.
Yes, and it was a beautiful. I mean, now to this day, I mean, at that time, sure, it rocked my socks. I mean, it just moved me. But leaving that retreat, I was still not completely ready to even go deeper. I mean, at any given time, I don't have it on today. I wear a diamond. It's a beautiful small diamond peace sign necklace with another little peace sign that was a gift. There's peace signs. All people see peace signs, they think of Kim Boudreau Smith, and I get gifts. It's amazing.
Oh, that's sweet.
So that was a pivotal moment. The other major, major pivotal moment, actually, I was just talking about this recently. It's about 15, 16 years ago, about a mile and a half from my home. So 8-lane road, 4 lanes go south all the way downtown Detroit, and 4 lanes go north all the way out to the suburbs and then some. And it's a busy road. And on a sunny, beautiful August afternoon, I fell asleep at a major intersection.
My gosh. Wow.
Not not once, but twice. And what woke me up was my head bobbed. I picked it up and it bobbed again. And I'll tell you something. To
Wow.
this day, I'll say to you, I was not even tired.
That's interesting.
I did not hurt anybody. I did not hurt myself. My first response was, "Oh my God, who saw me?" Not, it was, "Oh my God, who saw me? Who saw me? Who saw?" So that was another pivotal change in my life. While I reached back out to the woman that was hosting those weekend retreats. She turned it into a 9-month healing journey for women. 9 month is gestational birthing. And boy, I stepped back in that like it was going out of style. So that falling asleep at that red light was one of my biggest wake up calls.
Literally.
Literally, literally.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really believe that we receive exactly what we need right on time.
Mhm.
And depending on where you are and where you're meant to be, your sometimes soul takes the wheel and your higher team intervenes and does whatever it takes to get your attention.
Yes.
Because I feel like there's so many signs leading up to these events that people ignore. Because once you see, you can't unsee it. Once you can't unknow it.
Right.
So if you do see and know, then you're going to need to do something about it. And you know that. So there's a
Yes.
lot of avoidance for a long time. And I think we're all guilty of it, where there's things that we know, like we know we need to change. But until it's super, super clear,
Yes.
we don't take the step. So I really honor the fact that you paid attention. And then the right people tend to show up right on time when you're ready for that next
Oh,
level of experience. It's like, oh, here you are. Right here. Here's an introduction, or here's a retreat, or here's a
that
9 month
quickly.
birthing experience you can go
Yes.
through because you're
That's quick.
right.
Yes, that quick. I mean, like that day when I fell asleep at the red light, and I drove home here. Uh, about 30 minutes later, my friend was knocking on the front door. Forgot that she was coming by for a minute. Came in, sat down for a second. She goes, "You know, I think we need to talk about the things that you've been telling yourself." And I'm looking at her, and she had no idea what had just happened. And I'm
Oh
looking at her going,
my goodness.
"Let's talk."
Really? Well,
Yes,
that was divine timing for sure.
yeah.
For sure. So tell me a little bit about the work you're doing now. What's on your heart right now?
Well, my heart right now is a lot of my business is female centric, even though I have a few great men working that I get the honor to work with as well. But
Mhm.
I work with business owners and VPs, senior VPs, and C suites as they're really claiming their voices and gaining confidence. And yes, at a C-suite level, there's still a lot of that rumbles through people, and they want to become more authentic as they're
Oh,
just
if
as they're connecting with their audience,
if they can, if they can.
if they can. It's a tough one.
It's
It's a
challenging because a lot of people get to those levels without being authentic by playing the game.
And what's happening is a lot of this is unraveling in our leaderships in a lot of these organizations, and they're now shifting and putting employees first, putting patients first, putting customers first. So a lot of these leaders are vibrationally feeling this stuff. They know something's going on. It's my toughest challenge, Wendy, is when I have a woman standing in front of me and she's detached, head over there, body over there, and there's no, to get them to connect. Let's just reconnect the head to the body and to get them to drop down on the body. Because listen, I, I can make anybody the most stellar communicator. It's like, come on, let's go with me over to the mall, and I can wrap you up in a beautiful Tiffany blue box with that ribbon. But if there's nothing going on that inside for that connection,
Hollow,
you
it's a hollow thing.
yeah, you will never make those connections authentically. You will never be to that level of confidence that you want to be. Imposter will continue to take you over, and that inner critical dialogue will take, I promise you, I've done it. It will take you
The
down.
inner critic is the
Oh,
hardest thing to clear because it's such a deeply embedded core belief, even though it's false.
yes. And it's so false.
But it's
So
also reinforced so much by society, by our partners, by our mothers, by everything that we place value in.
yes.
So to own and claim ourselves, you have to be so absolutely aligned and know yourself. They
Yes.
say know thyself, right? Until
Yes.
you do that, you can't truly own and claim your power.
No.
And it requires so much courage because you have to be vulnerable.
you're starting to sound a little bit like Brene Brown, but yeah, absolutely. It does. It takes courage, and you have to be you there's a element of vulnerability there, not oh woe is me and pour it all out. Go do the oh woe is me and pour it all out. Now we can really start working on some authenticity and vulnerability. It's like I tell all my clients, look, if you're on stage or in a room, high stakes conversation, and you want to lead people to take actions, first of all, you've got to be human. So there's got to be some story elements involved. Number one, you can't just be an expert and thought leader all the time. You got to be a human, number one. And number two, if those stories are making you cry, this becomes a therapy session. You've got to go from wound to scar to be able to share stories from a very power-filled place. And that's true authenticity and vulnerability. It's not a weakness.
I think when people have the courage to cry, it cracks others open, actually.
Yeah.
I think when people see that you're human, they understand that there's more of a connection there. You're not this idolized and worshipped leader, and then you have the masses. You have to bridge that gap in order to have powerful impact on others.
Yes. And you have to be able to be so emotionally in tuned, not here, in tuned.
People feel it. People can
Yes.
feel when you're up there and you're just scripted. They feel the hollowness of that.
Mhm.
Especially now, people are becoming more connected to themselves. People are becoming more aware of their stuff.
Yes.
People are feeling more, even if they haven't made that
Mhm.
heart-mind coherence connection, they can feel something feels off to me. They might not be able to put a finger on it, right? They might not be able to put words to it.
Mhm.
But people I feel are becoming more heart-centric.
Agreed. And we all, as adults, need to learn how to process our emotions. We're not taught that.
Oh, true.
Our kindergarten teacher did not teach us that. Elementary school did not teach us that.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, as adults, we don't process all those emotions. And what we do instead, we start scrolling on Instagram, or, I'm going to go over here and start instead and make dinner, or
Course, the
yes,
distractions, the total busyness, the eternal busyness,
yes.
and lack of actual space is a huge, huge disconnect for people. It's just so easy. It's
Yeah.
so easy to pick up your phone and blow a half hour, 45 minutes scrolling around mindlessly or online shopping or whatever you're doing that's so important. But what's more important than giving yourself the gift of connecting with your soul and really listening to what you have to say?
Yes, I agree.
Receiving the intuitive wisdom and knowing for yourself. If you're never for a moment sitting still,
Yes.
you
And
cannot hear anything that's coming in.
yeah, and feel that and feel that. And that's where the magical divine is, when we sit still. And I don't want to insinuate you have to go sit still for an hour a day or for 2 hours a day. I don't even want to tell anybody any time limits or anything. But even if it is just something as simple as just go sit for 5 minutes and decompress from our electronics and the things, the doing, we're human doings. Go sit and be 5 minutes of a
Or,
beat.
I've found even, there are things that help people connect that are kinetic. You could swim
Oh, go for a walk in the
or
woods.
go for a
Nature.
walk
Yeah.
in nature, or I used to do this hardcore spinning like 5 days a week. I was like
Oh,
hardcore. Okay, like hardcore. But there was something about that kinetic. I would
move.
just really come to center and be so silent within myself, even though there was like music and I was just working out so hard. But there was this kinetic, I don't know. Zen energy within. I can't explain it. I would just really connect to myself in a way. There was something about the kinetic movement.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody has their own way of doing it. I'm not saying you have to be a Zen master, right?
Right.
Find your thing. Find your thing where
Yeah,
you're
go find your groove. Yeah.
centered and
Yeah.
balanced and you're actually like people who run distance. They just get in this zone, right? Find your zone.
Yep, I agree with you. One of the things that I don't, as you know, I live in Michigan. I don't like all this snow, but
Yeah.
here's what I do at 6:30 a.m. after we've had a fresh snowfall. I put on the hiking boots with the cleats, the ice cleats. I leash up my 8-year-old black lab Luna, the youngest of the two, and there's a trail not far from my house. It's not a really long trail, but there's a trail. There's trees. There's deer back in there. When you're walking in that fresh snow, there is the silence that does not come without snow on the ground because that snow blankets the serenity, the beauty, the things that you hear that you normally don't hear. It is amazing. For me, that's my Zen. Just give me a hiking trail and give me woods any time of the
I
day.
love
I
it.
lose track of time. I just lose track of time. I forget of everything that is going on. I love it.
That is amazing that you have that available to you.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
love that you do that consciously and consistently.
Yeah. Yes.
So we all have to find that thing.
Yes, we do. You know, another thing that I like to do when I'm feeling like I'm a recovering control freak. And so when I start feeling like I got to start
Raise my
controlling,
hand, me too.
I know.
I get it.
You know, when I feel like I gotta start controlling everything, okay, I know I'm in the masculine energy. I'm out
Mm,
of alignment. And what will happen is I will start getting sick. I go, you know, I have some stomach issues I'm going through.
mhm.
Those will start kicking in. Here's one of the other things. If I don't have the luxury of that time, leashing up Luna and getting out and go onto that path, here's some I just love to do. I go in my kitchen and I will empty out like the silverware drawer and clean that silverware drawer and put it all back. I don't know what it is.
What's
And
your thing?
no, I'm not doing that all the time, but there's something about that touching the quick results because you know maybe it was you know a little bit of crumbs or something got in there and you can just wipe that baby right on out and put the silverware. It's such quick results, but it's for me, it feels really, really good. But I like to have things clean and orderly. That's just me.
Mhm. I always say that fear and control go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Control, and I know this just because of my history and background. The more out of control I felt, the
Mm.
harder I would just lock in and try to control everything. It just goes hand in hand. So I had to really, during my process, pay attention to where I was trying to control things, not only control things, but also sometimes I'd catch myself like going back, just going back to something like an issue or something. And I'd think, man, I'm really fighting hard for this bullshit. I'm really fighting for this to hold on to this
I do that. Yep.
issue or this problem. I'm like, let it go. Like, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to hold on to it like a bulldog and just chew it to death, like
Yeah.
let it
Yeah.
go and free myself. This is self-awareness that we don't always have to have an answer or justice or we have to be so careful where we put our energy, right?
You're right. You know, I told you, you know, because I ordered your book and we were just in Mexico for the week and I took Wendy on my vacation with
I'm
me.
so honored.
I know
Thank
I was Wendy, I'm taking you on vacation with me. And you know, the book so I'm just going to say this. I'm not minimizing. The book is an easy read, and so let me explain what an easy read is to me. It's not like 1,000 pages, and oh my God, no. It's and the ahas and you should see your book. I mean, the highlighting and the circling and the comments and so many of like these aha moments. I know this stuff, but it's such a beautiful refresher and a reminder. It's like what you just said. When we do get, peanut butter and jelly, fear and control, we start going back to, but we, and it's like, and the person's going, well, that happened a couple of years ago. It's like, it does, we do that when that fear and that control comes
You know
over
what it
us.
was for me? I don't know for you, but it was the fear was like this unworthiness piece. Like I wasn't,
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't do it perfectly. I wasn't seen. I wasn't, there was
Yes.
always this worthiness component to it that I didn't recognize till much later, and it really wasn't the fear, but it was like this core belief that I was not enough and I was unworthy and I needed to double down. I need to double down and be better and do better and achieve more and whatever it was. I think we all have our version of that, right? Just
Yes. Yeah. My version of what you're explaining is very similar. It's that not enough, that perfectionism, do more, double down, make it work harder. Oh my gosh, my nails are grinding and my teeth are, it is never enough. In fact, quite frankly, right now, with what we are going through, I have two labs in the house, and my one oldest lab is 13 and a half. We have her in palliative care. We have her in hospice. And I'm going through. I never did enough for this dog for 13 years. And I've done more than enough. And then
course
some. We
you
made a
have.
lot
Of
of stuff.
course you have. It's
But
interesting how
it's that,
we slip back, right? You can't control what's
yes,
happening to your baby. So you're
yes,
gonna come back and go into that that narrative, right?
yes. That it's and then that narrative is that lack of worth, because guess what? I cannot control this situation, and damn it, I'm trying to control it and I can't.
It's so interesting how often, and even with doing so much inner work, how often it just pops up.
Yes.
You're like, oh my God, I would get so mad at myself, for being human. We're just being,
Yeah.
right? There's
Yes.
pain in losing a fur baby. Like it's a deep emotional time,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
knowing it's coming, and you're never gonna be ready, and you can't stop that train from coming. And
Yeah.
so I can see how difficult it is,
Yeah. It is.
and just give yourself grace.
Yeah. I'm working through this one. I'm working through this one
And
because
even in
it's,
the end, they're offering you gifts.
yes.
This is a
She
gift,
is. She
right?
is.
And
Yeah.
she's hanging on for you.
Yeah. I have it's so wonderful. I have an animal communicator communicating with her who has
Oh,
been
that's awesome.
a saving grace.
Aren't they
And guess what?
amazing? Aren't they
Yes,
amazing?
and no pun intended. She's been the saving grace. And so here's what Grace has been asking for. Okay, now let me keep in perspective here. This is a dog. She's asking for chocolate, which is toxic for. So I said, you know what?
If she's on her way out, give her the chocolate.
We went and got her some Hershey Kisses. We gave her one Hershey Kiss because, again, if she was to eat the whole bag, which I won't allow because she'd get sick and it'd be toxic, but one Hershey Kiss, she almost took my fingers off over it. I'm like,
So
here's,
excited. I love that you are doing that. So you can really respect the process and, gosh, honor her. Because most people don't know what dogs want.
no, and I'm very fortunate. I've got one of our pet sitters is an animal communicator, and she's
That is
very
awesome.
connected with Grace, and she is really has been able to help us navigate.
Yeah, transition, right? The
Yeah, yeah,
transition.
yeah.
Kim, where does the time go? I feel like that was 2 minutes and we're almost out of time already.
We've been talking for 45.
What's so fast? Anyway, I've just loved every moment of this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you.
If you were to offer something to someone who really wants to claim their own bold voice, maybe you can share something that really helped you on the journey, a tool or a reflection that really was something you could go back to over and over, like a touchstone.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. Yes.
We've
One,
got some times, but
well, one of the things that I like to do is actually it's not even in here, is I do like to have a little heart-shaped stone just to remind me, like, holding things when I feel like I'm going into that controlling, because what's going to happen when I go into that controlling? That darn hag in the attic, that inner critic, she's going to take that volume of that radio
uh,
station and she's going to crank it all the way up.
mm,
So I like to hold something or have something in my hand, but I it has taken a lot of time. That inner critic never goes away. And honestly, you don't want her going away. She's there for a reason, but she's been controlling us our whole adult lives. So I have gotten better to be able to flip my dialogue when she's chiming up. Oh, you led this thing and you pronounced someone's name wrong. What a loser, Kim, you are. No, 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 no. I'm tired. I'm human. I mispronounced someone's name. Okay, let's move on.
but
I'm
just extending grace to yourself.
yes to myself. Yeah. So there's so many things for your listeners. I do quiet time in the morning, and my quiet time might be a guided meditation. Might be just sitting and I'm looking outside and the fireplace is going. I've got my cup of coffee and my little protein bar, and I'm looking at the dogs. But I make sure if it's quiet time, I'm not listening to that inner critic. I'm able to dial that down to set me off authentically for the day. But there's so many things for us to overcome that imposter syndrome and the societal pressures and that inner critical dialogue. It takes work and it's practice and it's progress and it's not perfection.
That's a huge one. It's not perfection. I think also we need to remember to honor the smallest incremental progress
Oh,
because they're
yeah,
huge. We might think, well, I just dot dot dot, but every step, but big or small, is it's so powerful on the journey. It's so meaningful. We
yes, it
need to not
is.
diminish any part of it.
Well, and I see a lot of my female clients, they will do that. They will come out of something that they are elevating through confidence, high stakes conversation, sales call, presentation, and they were changing things up and they come through it and they're like, yeah. But then they'll go into the criticism. And it's like, you don't enhance confidence by kicking yourself up. And I will see a lot of the women, oh, but we all do it. No, no, no. Please don't put me in the we all do it because I've worked very hard on not doing that,
Right,
So
exactly, exactly.
so women will make themselves feel better in those situations, or they'll deflect
Mm.
they're going through onto other women. Oh yeah, you just got to have some self-belief in yourself. And I see this, especially like in my group programs. I kind of look and go, wow, should we hold the mirror up or what shall we do here? It's there's so much. There's not just one thing. I mean, I say get with partners and accountabilities and people that can graciously call you out and support you and help you navigate through
The real friends, right? The
real
people who are
friends.
truly authentically there
Yes.
for you because they see you and they know what you are
Yes.
capable of. And I'm talking not talking about success, but they know you. They're
Yes.
going to come over and have the courage to go, I see you struggling.
Yes.
That's the friend you want, not the one that's like, let's go drink 6 martinis and F this. That's you need someone who can really hold space for you in these vulnerable times,
Yes.
when
Yes.
really, really in it.
Exactly. Yes, yes.
Right.
And it's sometimes, Wendy, it's not a fun place to be in. I mean,
Never. I
yeah,
think
but
it's tough to confront ourselves and
yes.
see the patterns and then make a conscious choice to pivot or shift, right? I think it takes so much compassion and love for ourselves. And I'll tell you, I had none.
I was the same way.
I was
So, I
too.
mean, move over, sister. I mean,
Too.
the criticalness on my body
Oh gosh.
and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and what I was saying and how I was
Which
living.
is
And
so interesting because you have this fitness business,
oh yeah,
which
that
is
didn't happen for no, that was no
so
accident.
perfect.
I mean, yeah, that was no accident, but yeah, we all need to stop the criticalness and stop saying, but we all do it. Okay, stop the crazy madness and just take a breath and take that small, scary ass step to that self-compassion.
Yeah.
I see it. A lot of my friends, oh my God, they got to hold up that perfection because they've got kids. Well, I'm like, well, you know what you're doing? You're passing that on down to
Exactly. Now, I've
you're
been trying to unwind that. My kids are now 30 and 32, going on 33, actually. So, you know, I've been showing up authentically and in a different way for a while now, but I certainly had to be very conscious and aware of showing up with an open heart, no agenda,
passing.
and just setting everybody free. Like, I have no interest in controlling. It took years for them to believe me. Because of the damage done. But we're all recovering. We're all coming to terms with who we really are now and in a more open-hearted, environment. But Kim, I've enjoyed every moment with you
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you, and you're such a blessing to the people that you're helping in the world. So thank you for the work you're doing. I can feel your heart, and I know you're creating impact because there's a ripple effect for every person you can connect in. That ripples down through their entire organization. I mean, there's such a huge ripple effect. So thank you for being you and doing what you do. And to my audience, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to love yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and we'll see you next time.